Sup you beautiful people. Hope you've had a fantastic day. Welcome back to another new episode of What If Deku Joined the League of Villains. Don't forget to shower some appreciation onto the incredible author responsible for this fanfiction. The link is conveniently waiting for you in the description box down below. If you guys enjoyed this what if, comment down below and let me know. And go ahead and check out other what ifs in the channel after watching this video. Before we get into it though, don't forget to subscribe and leave a like, and also share this video with your friends. So let's start this video. Hades. The hospital. Dr. Iwatani led Akuma, Mustard, and Kendo to his office to speak. Once they arrived, Kendo was surprised at how big it was. 2 beds, a desk, a cabinet with medicine, and a cupboard with medical tools. It wasn't as big as Recovery Girl's office, but big enough. Kendo sat on one of the beds while Dr. Iwatani examined her. Akuma stood at the center with Mustard a little to the right. Using his glasses, Dr. Iwatani examined Kendo thoroughly from head to toe. Developed by Rika, the glasses enabled the user to use X-ray vision to a certain degree. They were perfect for examining the human body to ascertain what was damaged. However, they could not look through walls or objects unless they were standing quite close to them. The glasses were specifically designed for the hospital as they only had a few X-ray machines. Young lady, you've made quite a mess of yourself. 5 broken ribs, an almost broken jaw with a few dented teeth, several bruises over the stomach, back, knees and face. It's a miracle your skull was not damaged, he chastised. I hope you are not going to make a regular habit of this. I can't make any promises, she responded with a hint of shame in her voice. I'm sorry. Iwatani raised an eyebrow. Well, at least you're honest about it. He took out his phone and started typing. I've just messaged 2 doctors. One with a cork to fix teeth, another whose cork accelerates healing over several days. They'll help you out. Meanwhile, I am going to start patching up. Shouldn't you be discouraging me about this? Kendo inquired. Considering what goes on in this place and outside, I don't see much point, Iwatani shrugged. I will discourage you from actively pursuing this but no more. You must learn to look after yourself. Kendo nodded in understanding. Iwatani gave her some morphine to dull her pain and began bandaging her injuries. By the time he was finished, she looked similar to a mummy although her face was still visible. Dr. Iwatani then approached Akuma slowly. Then standing in front of him he examined Akuma from head to toe. Whose blood is that? The doctor interrogated, referring to the blood on Akuma's hands. Not mine, Akuma shrugged. A mixture of people I fought. How many? Iwatani asked. I don't know. 6-8. I never keep track, Akuma shrugged again. Dr. Iwatani let out a sigh. Sadly, this was quite common around here. He'd honestly lost track of the number of times Akuma had been in this room because of those fights, not to mention the number of people who had fought him. The list was rather high. Are you hurt anywhere? He continued. Other than my fists from repeated punching, no, Akuma said nonchalantly. The times when those punks got a lucky shot in or two, I hardly felt. I'll be the judge of that. Dr. Iwatani put on a pair of glasses and examined Akuma thoroughly. From what he could see, there was no internal damage in Akuma's upper and lower body sections. His head was a little hard to make out. Dr. Iwatani moved his patient's eyes and used a small flashlight to see that nothing was wrong. He did the same with Akuma's mouth, much to the latter's annoyance. Alright, you clear, Iwatani announced. Nothing too serious, or that won't heal by tomorrow. Nothing you need to use your cork on, you mean, Akuma smirked. You must be so disappointed. Iwatani tilted his head slightly. Even though he had a mask on, Mustard could swear he was smiling underneath. Then, without warning, the good doctor grabbed the devil hero by the crotch and twisted. Akuma, taken back by the action, yelped in pain. Oh, what the hell, asshole? He snapped. I thought you said this was a place for healing, not causing more damage. Iwatani raised an eyebrow. You have hardly been dealt any damage, he corrected. And quite frankly, you could use some to fix that shitty personality of yours. He was glaring at Akuma now. You know I don't like using my quirk unless it's actually serious. I was joking, you surgeon asshole. Akuma snapped. For shit's sake, pull whatever stick is up your ass out. As soon as you do the same, you demonic jackass. Iwatani snapped back while tightening his grip. Akuma let out a small yelp while the students were just watching in awe. Before they could ask what he meant, Akuma let out a scowl as he started to transform. From his back shot out 2 big metallic dark blue wings that nearly hid Mustard. From his head grew 2 sharp horns, while his skin changed to dark blue. His teeth became sharper, and his nails morphed into claws. During the transformation, his clothes were also affected by becoming armored versions of themselves. In addition, his hair had solidified to the point where the spikes could cut a person if touched. The most notable change was his eyes, where the sclera turned entirely black, the red iris brightened, and the pupil became a straight line. Kendo and Mustard were taken back by the hero's transformation. Sure, they had seen pictures and videos of him before, but they'd never witnessed him shape-shifting before. Akuma glared at Iwatani with a burning fury. The doctor had twisted a bit too far, and now he was ready to go on a rampage. Let go of me now. Or so help me, I will rip you apart limb from limb. Akuma threatened in a deep demonic voice that sent chills down everyone's spine. He had gotten tired of being held like this, and if he wasn't released soon someone would get hurt. Despite being threatened by a demon, Dr. Iwatani wasn't fazed in the slightest. "MP threats don't work on me," he stated firmly. "You should know that by now." Before the hero could retort, Mustard intervened. "Okay, enough. Akuma, don't attack him, and Doc, please let go of his balls so we can talk about the important stuff," the boy pleaded. The doctor and the demon glared at each other for another minute until Akuma was released from his painful position. Kendo knew that if Sasuna were here, she would start shipping them, in spite of the toxicity their relationship involved. "Excuse me, sir, my friend Ibara Shiozaki." Kendo started. "Was she brought here earlier?" Iwatani's eyes narrowed. "The girl with vines for hair." Kendo's eyes widened. "That's correct. Do you know what happened to her?" Iwatani did not answer immediately. He knew the girl in question. Her arrival had the entire hospital on edge. She was mostly naked and covered in blood. Following an explanation from Yumi, they brought her to an isolated area of the hospital and treated her as best they could. That was not the main issue, however. The main issue was the psychological damage inflicted. "Ms. Shiozaki is alright. We treated her and found there were no physical wounds. However, she is still in shock, so she'll need to undergo some psychiatric treatment. Fortunately, we have people who specialize in that area, so you don't need to worry," Iwatani explained. "She is in good hands, I promise." Kendo wanted to believe him, she really did, but part of her just wasn't sure. Before she could ask more questions, the doctors Iwatani came in to treat her, while Iwatani escorted Mustard and Akuma out. Mustard told Kendo he would let Yumi and Utada know about her condition, which she was grateful towards. As they neared the hospital entrance, Mustard decided to ask Iwatani something that had been on his mind since Akuma first brought it up. "Can I ask you something, Dr. Iwatani?" Mustard asked politely. The said doctor raised an eyebrow. "Depends on what it is." "Shoot. What's your quirk?" Mustard asked. The doctor stared at him with an unreadable expression. "Why do you want to know?" "Curiosity," Mustard admitted. "From what Akuma was saying earlier, it sounds like a healing quirk, however, you've made it clear you don't like using it. Why is that?" Iwatani continued staring at him, much to the boy's discomfort. He considered not answering and just sending him on his way, but he was interrupted by the sound of snickering. Akuma was struggling to contain his laughter. So much that he was clutching his stomach. When he became aware the others were staring at him, he dropped the act and exploded. Iwatani grimaced while Mustard was confused at what was so funny. "His quirk," Akuma spluttered. "Oh god. It's ahahahaha." Mustard was baffled by Akuma's behavior. Dr. Iwatani's quirk couldn't be that embarrassing, could it? Dr. Iwatani, with an emotionless expression, stood up and walked slowly towards the devil hero. Mustard started to sweat from nervousness. He didn't know what the doctor was going to do, but he hoped it wasn't serious. Maybe he should activate his quirk now before hell broke loose. Iwatani stood in front of Akuma, who was still snickering. In one swift motion, he kneed the hero between the legs and then punched him in the face. Akuma surprisingly didn't stagger, although he did cease laughing. "Okay, I deserved that one," Akuma admitted with a hint of pain. Yes, you did," Iwatani said simply. "You know how I feel about my quirk, so if you ever bring it up again, I will hurt you in ways you have never experienced. One of the perks of becoming a doctor is including learning how to treat the body. We also learn where exactly to inflict pain where it is most sensitive. Albeit it's indirect. Understand, demonic jackass?" "Absolutely," Akuma responded sarcastically. "Surgeon asshole." Mustard just looked at them both, just wondering what sort of relationship they both have. "It's nothing major. It's just that my quirk, well suited to healing, is actually embarrassing," Iwatani explained. "What it is, well. Shoto Todoroki." Ice shot out from Shoto's right side, covering up some of the water. "Damn it." Shoto swore. Still not right. He'd been trying for over an hour to freeze the water using the particles in the air, rather than from his body. He tried heating the water as well, but had little success in either. To be fair, he still wasn't used to his left side yet. For most of his life, he'd relied on his right as a way to smite his father for what he did. But because Izuku had convinced him it was his quirk, not his father's, he tried to use it a bit more. He would have asked Yumi for assistance, but she was with Ibara Shiozaki at the hospital, so he was on his own. That aside, his thoughts cast upon his mother. He wasn't sure how informed she was about the world outside the hospital, but part of him hoped she didn't know about this. She had suffered enough, she didn't need any more. Another part of him wished she knew, because that way she wouldn't think he'd abandoned her. As far as his visitations went, Izuku was the only one who knew about them. No one else did, not even his siblings. He hadn't told Fayumi because he was worried about their father finding out, and he hadn't told Natsuo because they hadn't spoken in years. Maybe he'll tell someone at UA, though probably not, Shoto pondered as he melted the ice with his fire. Shoto stared down at his reflection in the water. However, much to his surprise, it wasn't him he saw. What he saw was someone he hadn't seen in a long time, yet he could never forget, even if he tried. Unruly red hair spiked up in tufts around the head, falling down on the forehead in uneven bangs, and two bright turquoise eyes. His father's eyes. Tears began to well up in Shoto's eyes as he realized who this was. Tenya, he whispered softly. His older brother stared back at him with a sad expression. He looked as if he wanted to say something but couldn't. Tenya, Shoto repeated. Where are you? Why did you disappear? Things have gotten so much worse without you around. So just, why? At this point, tears were streaming down Shoto's face as he talked to the hallucination of his brother, who could do nothing but stare back. I miss you, Shoto said. I miss you so much. Shoto wanted so badly for his brother to be here, to be right next to him, to lie in his embrace like he used to. While he wished for this, tears continued to flow out of his eyes. Unknown to him, he was being watched. Meizo Shoji. Holding the dummy by the waist, Meizo lifted it and swung back, keeping his feet where they were. The dummy landed on his head, with Meizo's head just inches above the ground. German suplex, Meizo murmured. Nothing too complex. When he started training with Lobo last night, he showed him a few basic moves. Nothing too difficult, just a few grabs and holds. However, towards the end, Lobo showed him how to do a German suplex, thinking it was suited for him. Originally, Meizo was content with learning techniques at a slower pace to get them right. However, the day's events had triggered something inside Meizo. Watching Ibari just sitting there helpless, as a monster tried to violate her, with all of them being restrained, caused his blood to boil in ways he never knew possible. Meizo wasn't one to hold grudges, but even he felt no pity towards Kaio as Shiro killed him. It wasn't just that though, the event made him realize what he was up against. And if he wanted to protect his classmates, and himself, he needed to get stronger, much stronger. He was certain he would be fighting in the arena or pit soon, and when he did, he would be ready. I see you're practicing Chico, a familiar voice entered. Bien. Meizo stood up and faced his teacher who was leaning against the wall. I have a favor to ask, he said suddenly. Lobo raised an eyebrow. If it's something I can do, then I'll try to help, if not, then I won't. Meizo nodded in understanding. Getting down on his knees he bowed, placing his hands in front and his head touching the ground. Lobo's eyes widened. From what he could tell, Meizo was performing a kowtow, a type of bow used to display the highest form of reverence to an individual. Whatever this favor was, it must be serious. Please, train me, Meizo requested, confusing the luchador. Train me harder than you've been doing. What's brought this on? Lobo asked, baffled. Don't misunderstand me, Chico, I'd love to, but why? Meizo brought his head up to stare at the ground. I'm guessing you've heard about the incident concerning Ibara Shiozaki. Boy, everyone in Hades knows about it, Lobo responded. News travels fast around here, especially when Shiro is in a bad mood. The entire event sickened him. He knew Kaio was a bastard, but he never imagined he'd do something so vile. It made him wonder how he got away with it for so long. Worse than that, there was the effect it had on the children. He'd seen them when he came in. Some were crying with others trying to comfort, while some just stared off into space, completely in shock. They were traumatized, and he doubted they would recover soon. That girl, the victim, Ibara Shiozaki, had suffered the most. It would take months of psychiatric treatment before she would feel fine again. That said, he knew what Meizo's request was and why he wanted it. You want me to train you, so you'll be strong enough to protect your friends and yourself. Meizo finally made eye contact with him. It wasn't hard to figure out. About that though, while I'm willing to go through with it, you should know that I won't hold back. Understood. Anything less would feel insulting, Meizo declared. Train me like you mean to kill me. You'll regret those words, Lobo stated. I'll regret it even more if I don't, Meizo retorted. Seeing the determined look in his eyes, Lobo's mind was made up. Let's get started. Tenya Ida. Tenya was running as fast as he could, with his engines assisting all the way. Right now, he was running between empty walls in a big ovular-shaped area where Heiai normally practiced. He didn't know how long he'd been running for, or how many laps he had performed, but he didn't care either. He needed some way to think, or better yet process, everything he had heard. Less than 2 hours ago, Heiai and Shida had given him a full synopsis on Izuku's time at Hades. They told him about his arena bouts, what sort of jobs he did, the people he interacted with, etc. They then came to the more disturbing aspects of what occurred here, such as the incident with Tenem. Tenya was honestly disturbed that such a group had existed. The things they did to children were downright evil. He could only imagine how those poor children suffered when they were abducted by them. The children of Hades were scarred by the ordeal, and Izuku just as much so. During the retrieval mission, he witnessed a child he knew killed right in front of him. He held that child in his arms as he slowly died until finally, he disappeared. When the same man tried to kill them again, Izuku, on instinct, killed him first. Then they came to the part where Izuku allegedly killed another member named Graphene, because he was threatening him and the children, which in turn led to the fight between him and Shiro. Hei described the fight in surprisingly exquisite detail. Shiro completely decimated Izuku, who barely landed a punch. Then there was an explosion which provided the boy with the distraction he needed to escape and take Shiro's eye. Is that why he was so against me doing it in Hosu? Tenya wondered. Because he had done it himself. Shiro said he didn't remember, but perhaps it was subconscious. From a short distance, Hei watched Tenya run. He would have interfered, but he could tell the boy needed time to process everything. For that reason, he decided not to tell Tenya about what happened with his classmates earlier. He already had enough on his mind. Hei's phone started buzzing. It was a text from Shida. I've finished measurements, and now I've drawn up a few basic designs for Tenya to choose from. Could you bring him back so I can show him? Having super speed for a quirk was incredibly handy when texting. It may be a while before I can do that. He's still doing laps and I don't want to interrupt him. It took a minute for Shida to reply. Understandable. When he's ready, please bring him around. I've got some designs he might be interested in, ones that match up with what Shiro suggested. Roger that. Hei continued to observe Tenya who looked as though he was about to pass out. It seemed that fatigue was finally starting to take its toll on him. Then, without warning, Tenya's foot hit a rock and caused him to crash face first into the ground. Or at least he would have, if not for Hei's quick intervention. He sped up to Tenya and caught him by the head and waist, before pulling him back into a sitting position. Okay, you've been running a while now and you're about to pass out, Hei pointed out. I think enough is enough. Tenya, who was panting heavily, couldn't find the strength to argue. Hei presented him with a bottle of water, and Tenya gulped it down very quickly, while getting his breathing under control. Feeling better? Hei inquired. A little, Tenya admitted. I'm still having trouble processing it all. I don't know why. Maybe I just don't want to believe it. Hei didn't say anything. Though that was probably for the best. Hey, if you're training me, will that involve staying out here for a few days? Tenya asked, surprising the speedster. If you, he started. Because I actually wouldn't mind spending a few days out here separated from everything, Tenya interrupted. I'd be a great distraction. Hei thought about it for a minute. It wouldn't be a problem, but when a certain time arrives in the next few days, you will have to return to the kids section along with Shida, he explained. Because during that time, Hades will be on lockdown. I can't say any more than that though. Tenya shot him an inquisitive look, wondering what was so important that Hades needed to go into full security mode. Given that he would find out in a few days, he chose not to question Hei. Finding his footing again, Tenya stood up with Hei following him. I think we'd better head back to Shida, Hei announced. He texted me earlier and said he'd come up with a few basic designs that might interest you. Would you like to take a look? May as well, Tenya decided. The pair started walking back to Hades' main building. Hey, I've been thinking, Tenya murmured, catching Hei's attention. About what you said earlier where I'm my own hero. Hei listened intently. I was thinking, in addition to a new costume, I might change my appearance a little. Are there facilities or people with quirks around here where that's possible? Yeah, Hei quickly replied. I know a few places. What did you have in mind? Tenya explained his idea, causing the speedster to grin. We actually have someone with a quirk for that in Hades, he stated. I'll introduce you to her after this. Perfect, Tenya said as they walked off. Izuku Midoriya. Izuku couldn't believe what he was seeing. It was Kai Chisaki, Overhaul, leader of the Yakuza, also known as the Shai Hassaikai, 8 Precepts of Death, lying right next to him. Strangely enough, that wasn't the most alarming thing that had happened. No, what was truly alarming was the fact that Kai had snuck into UA undetected, and then entered his room without alerting Izuku to his presence. Even if he hadn't been trained by Razor, he would have felt Kai getting on his bed. Either UA has the worst security ever, which isn't impossible, or I've completely lost it, which also isn't impossible, Izuku thought. The only boggling question that was on Izuku's mind now though was, why was Kai here? Just what did he want? Judging from the look in your eyes, you're probably wondering why I'm here and what I'm after, Kai said in the usual tone. Izuku's eyes widened. You really need to work on that, you know. You're as easy to read as a book. God fucking damn it. Every time. Every fucking time. What the fuck is wrong with me? Izuku screamed internally. He hated being so easy to read. He really did. He didn't understand why, but he had always been this way since childhood, and it pissed him off to no end. Are you finished with your mind tantrum? Kai asked, bored. If so, are you ready to talk? Izuku narrowed his eyes at the Yakuza boss. Sure, he said softly, before springing into action. Izuku quickly positioned his body in the form of a handstand, and attempted to bring his leg down hard on Kai, only for him to roll out of the way. On his hands again, he sprung his legs back in an attempt to double-kick Kai, who swiftly dodged to the side. As he stood up, Izuku glared at Kai. I don't know what he's doing here, but I'm not letting him leave, Izuku decided. If he's after me like Shiro and Atrocity, I need to take him out now. Izuku looked down at Kai's hands. Gloves on. I need to make sure that he doesn't use his quirk. Then again, if he does use it, it will attract unwanted attention. Izuku knew exactly what Kai's quirk was. Overhaul. The quirk that enabled him to disassemble and reassemble anything he touched. During the Tenem incident, he got a good look at it, when they were forced to work together to navigate the underground and reach Tenem's base. It was powerful, that much was obvious. Izuku had started to rapidly mumble about the capabilities of the quirk, which much to Izuku's surprise, didn't annoy Kai at all. On the contrary, he seemed both intrigued and impressed by his quirk analysis abilities, even more so when he discovered Izuku was quirkless. Izuku punched at Kai rapidly, only for him to dodge each with relative ease. Seeing that he wasn't getting anywhere, Izuku spun and delivered a turning kick to Kai's body. It should have connected, but much to Izuku's shock, Kai crouched down on the floor. Wasting no time, he dashed towards Izuku with both his gloves off. Acting on instinct, Izuku bent back and performed a back handspring to the edge of the room. Kai didn't stop there, unfortunately. He continued his advance, and now his right arm was outstretched 10 inches away from Izuku's face. Crap, if I don't move, I'll be dead for sure, Izuku thought. Izuku's head ducked to the opposite side of Kai's hand. Not wasting any time, Izuku moved forward. The space between him and Kai was small, but there was enough to do what he needed. Kai's left leg leaned towards tripping him, however, the second it did, Izuku performed an aerial cartwheel right by him. He then performed another back handspring to put some distance between them. Kai turned to face him. The two locked eyes with each other, neither one of them blinking. Impressive. You've gotten stronger, Kai commended. Though I can't say I'm surprised. Flattery will get you nowhere with me, Izuku snapped. What the hell are you doing here? If you've come for me. I'm sort of here because of you, Kai cut him off. Izuku stared at him dumbfounded. Because of me? What the hell does that mean? He asked incredulously. The last time we met it ended with me being disgusted by you, and not wanting to be anywhere near you. Overhaul groaned. Seriously, you're still mad about that? Yes. Izuku snapped. Why wouldn't I be? What you're doing is completely wrong. Izuku, that is fucking hypocritical of you, the Yakuza leader snapped back. You experimented on people as well. You left them in a broken state. For a few hours, Izuku retorted. The enhancement drug side effects lasted a few hours. Also, my test subjects were all adults. None of what I did involved cutting up a little girl, and then killing and bringing her back to life over and over again. Izuku didn't bother to hide the venom in his voice. He could still remember how heavily bandaged the little girl, Eri, was when he first encountered her. He remembered how she'd done what Kai had asked without question, however it was evident that she had done it out of fear rather than loyalty. Kai called Eri his daughter, but it was obvious he didn't see or treat her like one. What kind of father does that to his own child? Even Endeavor wasn't that bad, but Izuku wasn't about to start comparing them. You're right. I do that repeatedly to Eri, without her consent, Kai answered. I treat several of my men as expendable despite the work they do. And I do it all for the sake of my ambition. In order to cleanse this world of quirks and restore my Group 2's former glory. At the expense of a child's innocence, Izuku sneered. Kai raised an eyebrow. No plan is perfect, he said softly. There are always flaws in its design. There are always positives and negatives. It's the same with humans. No one is perfect, least of all me. Izuku scoffed. Well, on that we agree. You aren't perfect. You've got blood on your hands as well, Kai pointed out. Izuku didn't have a way to counter that. He was only starting to remember, but he knew he had killed a person. It was sickening, but it was true, even if it was self-defense. I still don't agree with your methods, Izuku stated firmly. I never asked you to, Kai replied. I wouldn't justify my actions. I just want you to understand. Izuku wasn't sure what Kai wanted him to understand, but he didn't care. Torturing children was a line he would never cross no matter what the consequences. Even Tomoe, who was not above using torture and murder to get what he wanted, would never do that to a child. He had some limitations, morals you could call them. There was an awkward silence between them as they stood there. All that aside, how are you, Kai? Izuku asked with a neutral expression and tone. How are things going with the Hasekai? Since he was already here, Izuku decided he would be a little civil towards him. Better than what's been happening with you, I'll say, Kai snorted. Izuku frowned, but Kai's expression didn't change. Speaking of which, my condolences for your loss. Izuku's expression quickly turned sad as Kai talked about Sensei. All for One was a powerful man, as well as a great leader, Kai praised. The Emperor of Darkness who ruled all over the underside of society. Kids like me believed he was just a legend, but our elders believed they had a reason. That said, even after he went underground, he was still respected by many. His death was a shock to us all. Thank you, Izuku said. While he may not have liked the man, he was grateful for what he said about Sensei. Izuku still hadn't gotten over his death and wasn't going to anytime soon. I respected him also, Kai continued. So, it's only natural that I pay my respects to him and his allies. Izuku nodded, still with a mournful glint in his eyes. Regarding his allies, I'm guessing you haven't heard anything about them lately. I certainly haven't, Kai admitted. You're right, I haven't. I don't know what Tomoe is up to. I don't know what any of them are up to. I've been watching the news, and there's been no sightings or mentions of them recently. If I had to guess, they've decided to lay low for a while, which is a smart decision all things considered, Izuku explained. Laying low after the shit that went down at Kamino would have been the smartest decision Tomura could have made, though Izuku was certain Kurogiri had a hand in it. How he missed that man. Out of all the league members, he was probably the one with the most common sense, though Sensei, Compress, and Dabi weren't too far behind. He also missed his teacher Razor, and her constant threats and swearing. Do you think they could be fighting with atrocity? Kai asked. Izuku took a minute to think about it. Possibly, he admitted. Honestly, I'd be amazed if they didn't. I know he and Sensei's group have been in conflict for quite some time now. His death would certainly escalate it. And given Shigaraki's personality, he's not likely to just sit around while his master's killer is walking around free. Tomura may have matured in recent weeks, but there was no doubt in Izuku's mind that avenging Sensei would be his top priority, even more than killing All Might. With Sensei gone now, are you trying to seize control? Izuku asked. It was a logical question. If Kai wanted to restore his group, he would need more territory, not to mention influence. With Sensei out of the picture, it provided an opportunity for most organizations to gain a bit of footing in the criminal underworld. Trying being the keyword, Kai said. Others like Atrocity and Shiro are claiming it all even as we speak. Which reminds me. I saw that list of yours on Hades. Pretty impressive. It still won't help them win though. Izuku blood froze. His expression became a mixture of shock and horror. It wasn't what Kai said about the heroes, it was the fact that he knew about his list. How do you know about that? Izuku growled, no longer being polite. I only finished that list today, there's no way you could have seen it. How did you even know about it? I watched you type it, Kai responded simply. Izuku found that disturbing. Have you been stalking me? He interrogated. That's creepy even by your standards. In a manner of speaking, the shy Hassaikai leader admitted. I must say, that Hato girl is really annoying the way she talks. It's even more frustrating that your killing intent didn't work on her. Izuku's eyes widened. Though not as frustrating as losing to that Tagata. I won't lie, he packs a wall up despite his unintentional stripping. Izuku stared at Kai completely dumbstruck. There's no way he could possibly know about those events. Even if he had snuck in, there's no possible way he could have remained undetected while observing those moments. How did you get in? Izuku asked quietly. Kai tilted his head amused. It wasn't bad security if that's what you're thinking. Although considering the previous 2 break-ins and kidnapping, it would be a pretty good guess. It was at that moment, Izuku realized who he was truly speaking to, or rather what he was speaking to. You aren't him, Izuku said softly. He was never here. The person he thought was Kai started clapping slowly. Congratulations, Izuku. For a minute there I was worried you wouldn't figure it out, Kai. No, the hallucination answered. I'm still him, in a way. However, I think we can both agree that while the real me is good, he is not this good. For several seconds Izuku remained silent. Then, without warning, he exploded with laughter that confused the hallucination. When he calmed down, he was smiling. I can't fucking believe it, he exclaimed. I really have gone insane. Insane no, Kai pointed out. Extremely stressed, definitely. Though considering the life you live, it wouldn't surprise me if you did end up like that eventually. That only caused Izuku to laugh again, this time even harder than before until he finally calmed down. Why? He asked. Why what? The hallucination asked confused. Izuku had a dark look in his eyes. Why, of all the people in my fucked up life, is Kai the one I manifest as a hallucination? The hallucination shrugged. How should I know? Maybe it's because of all the people you met in Hades, I'm the only alive that isn't a member. Izuku groaned. That wasn't the best reason, but it was the most likely one. You're not someone I want to see right now, Kai, Izuku stated annoyed. Me being here suggests otherwise, Kai retorted. Which reminds me. You never answered my question. Why not face your problem now? You know you can't keep running. Eventually, Shiro will find you, and then what will you do? Izuku didn't answer. He couldn't answer. Most of all, he didn't want to answer. So instead, he turned his back and closed his eyes. I don't want to talk with you, Kai. I don't want to see you either, Izuku said as coldly as he could. So, get out, and don't come back. When he turned back, he saw that Kai was gone and he was alone again, much to his own relief. He didn't know how that happened, or rather he didn't know how it was Kai who appeared instead of someone else. Honestly, he would have expected it to be someone like Shiro or Sensei, not Kai Chisaki. Their last meeting had ended mostly neutral, though Izuku was adamant on never seeing him again. When Izuku turned to leave his room, he saw Kai was right in front of him. His eyes glaring deep into his and his head came closer. Izuku didn't understand why, but for some reason, he couldn't move. Oh Izuku, Kai said softly. I'm not going to up and leave just like that. Can't you see? Whether it's the real Kai Chisaki or me, we're a part of you. I'm not just going to up and vanish just like that. I came from your head, which is fucked up as hell, and not just from Hades. As such, I'm here to stay. Izuku could not look on as he took in all these facts, he knew to be true. If you need me, I'm here to talk, Kai said. You can't keep fleeing from this forever. You'll have to confront him eventually. Without warning, he placed his hand on Izuku's face. Being an illusion, Izuku couldn't feel his touch, yet he still flinched. Kai's cold expression was replaced with a sad one. Does this remind you of the last time we saw each other? He asked. Izuku's answer was silence, which was enough for him. I see. Well, you know where I am. And just like that, he was gone. Vanished, as though he had never been there, to begin with. Overwhelmed, Izuku slumped onto the ground, breathing heavily. He wasn't having another panic attack, but he was highly emotional at that point. Just when he thought his life couldn't get any crazier. Hero Public Safety Commission. We have received a list from Izuku Midoriya, Deku, on Hades' members and their abilities, the president announced to her co-workers. Please print as many out as possible and distribute them among the heroes and police. Yes ma'am, the workers bowed as they went off. Everything is in order then? The General Commissioner questioned. The president nodded. Assemble the heroes and police. The General Commissioner ordered. It's time to destroy Hades and take back those lost to it. Thanks for listening. I do hope you enjoyed. If you want the next part of this video, like, subscribe and comment down below, and turn on the bell notification. And also check out other videos that I have created and enjoy. See you in the next video. Peace.